Hello, I'm Dr. Jada Jackson Hill, Vice President of Wellbeing for Listeners on Call. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about the importance of human connection. Now, human connection, I believe, makes life just a little bit more enjoyable and less chaotic. So, for those of us who have strong, meaningful relationships, we tend to find greater satisfaction in life overall. And I just kind of think it's nice to have connections that support growth and development as we plow through our natural phases of life or our natural transitions in life. And so when we invest in meaningful connections, we feel more supported in our personal and even our professional lives. Now, as I've worked with clients over the years, I'm completely convinced that human connection or human connectivity, it helps to lower our stress, regulate our emotions, and leads to improved self-concept and empathy. It also has the potential to improve our immune system. And so when we ignore our need for human connection, I believe that we're also ignoring our physical and mental well being. Now, by taking one small step, and I mean just one small step toward connectivity, that may be the difference between um, a quality of life that you love versus a quality of life that you're just okay with. And so I just have this one question for you. How do you treat a good friend? This is our small step. It's our step to just consider, how do you treat a good friend? In other words, what boundaries have you set? What things will you do versus the things you won't do? Because when we think about how we connect with the people in our lives, we start to recognize how valuable those relationships are. And I believe that they're valuable on multiple levels. And so the human connection that we have, it really is that sense of closeness and that sense of belonging that we experience during a relationship that supports us through our phase of life issues. And so remember, connectivity is a basic fundamental human need. And so what I'd like to do right now is just share with you just three simple strategies that you can use to connect just a little bit more effectively. And so, number one is embrace self awareness and vulnerability. And so, I know you're probably saying, no, Dr. Jada, that vulnerability word is just not a word that I'm comfortable with engaging with, but it's so necessary. Of course, we all know that we are. Imperfect human beings, right? And so, this reality that we are already very much aware of, and with this awareness comes, unfortunately, vulnerability. And so, that is something that oftentimes we may shy away from, and rightfully so, because it's emotionally risky. It can certainly be risky if we attempt to engage in unsafe relationships. And so, one of my favorite authors talks about this. And if you're familiar with Brene Brown, you know that she is a shame and vulnerability researcher. And she talks about being present with people to connect. And she says that we must learn to accept and sit with our own vulnerability to connect with others when and how they need us to connect. And so when you think about that, it's really about taking a step back and saying, okay, how aware am I not only of myself, but aware of what the needs of others are? And so I think that that's just very important. And when we talk about authenticity in this context, even that can be a little risky, right? Because it's us being, again, very real and vulnerable with ourselves. And this level of honesty, it of course leaves us open to criticism, rejection, manipulation, and other uncomfortable interactions. However, if we engage in this self awareness and vulnerability, then we have the potential to have amazing connections and relationships. Here's number two: encourage empathy and compassion. Encourage empathy and compassion. So it's often said that empathy is compassion in action. And in this sense, we're talking about empathy as a skill set and not necessarily as a way of being, because we can learn to become more empathetic and develop that skill if we really put our minds to it. And so when we're talking about empathy, it's a way for us to express our compassion, relate to others on an emotional level. And Brene Brown talks about empathy as being present for someone who needs to be heard and allowing that person to express their emotions without being told what to do, how to feel, or ways to stop their pain. And so all of us can do that. We just have to stop talking, and show up for the people that we love and just be present or just be. And so without being consoled or interrupted in any way, I think we would all appreciate the opportunity to talk in a safe, uninterrupted space. So that's number two. It's encourage empathy and compassion. Here's number three: acceptance of self and others. And so spending time in honest reflection is an important feature of human connection. And so it helps us to come to terms with the fact that we are both good and bad. Interesting dichotomy, right? Positive and negative, darkness and light, just like everyone else in the world. And I've had the pleasure of studying the work of Carl Jung, world renowned psychiatrist and author, who discussed the concept of the shadow selves as being critical to our self understanding and our personal growth. And so the shadow selves are those parts of us that we would love to disown or deny. And so paradoxically, it is only by embracing these qualities that they lose the power over us. And so what does all of this really mean? It means by accepting ourselves as human and therefore imperfect, we are better able to accept others. So if we can accept ourselves as flawed human beings, then we can accept others as flawed human beings as well. And so as we stop judging ourselves, our thoughts, our behaviors as good or bad, we begin to accept ourselves as the fallible human beings that we are and accept others as the same. And so this is necessary to create safety in our relationships. And this is just a caveat here, because of course, I'm not talking about abusive, maladaptive behaviors that are counterproductive to healthy human connectivity. And so there you have it. Those are the three areas. Number one, embrace self-awareness and vulnerability, because we are all imperfect human beings. Number two, encourage empathy and compassion, because empathy is compassion in action. And then number three, acceptance of self and others. In other words, spending time in honest reflection is an important trait for healthy human connection. So I want to encourage you: surround yourself with people with shared interests and shared experiences. Don't hide behind your phone, and be intentional about connecting with the people you like, and set those healthy boundaries with unhealthy connections. Now, I believe connected, healthy relationships add spice and stability to our lives. And human connection is the key to unlocking strong, healthy relationships that have the potential to impact our quality of life. I believe you can create healthy connections in your life. And if you would like to connect with an anonymous professional listener, we offer this option to speak to someone at Listeners on Call on Demand. You never know how connected listening might decrease stress and improve your quality of life.